Hi, my name is Bill, and welcome to another edition of Billboard Comics. This is another installment in our line of Girlfriend's Guide to Comics. Today we're going to be talking about volumes. What are volumes? Um, those in the comic book collecting hobby know volumes are um, different installments of the comic book run. Uh, Very few, or if any, comic book run has lasted from its inception to the common day without actually being canceled and being rebooted with a new number one. And every new number one means a new volume. This is one of the most confusing things for my wife when she was buying comic books for me. If I remember touching on this at the beginning of this whole series, was volumes because some series might have 10 number ones, and to determine between the two which one is which from the outside looking in, it isn't all that easy. It isn't really exactly kind of makes sense, and it's hard for you as an outsider to know which number one is for which volume and whatnot. Um, but first of all, let's talk about like why are there so many volumes for some of these series. Um, Back when my uh, wife was buying me comics for Captain America, Captain America had about 4 volumes in it. It's now currently up to 11 volumes. Spider-Man is now up to 7 volumes. Aquaman has 8 volumes to its credit. Um, Black Widow has 8 volumes. That means that 8 different series in its name. Some might only have 3 or 4 issues to it, but the first series arrived in 1999. So 8 different series in the span of 25, 26 years. That's a lot. Um, Captain Marvel had 12 series with 4 different characters. The genus Marvel, sorry, Marvel, the original one, had 2 series to its name. Um, both of them, like the second series started 40 years after the first series. Kind of like he came from the past and came to the future and did that. Um, Monica Rambeau, who you might remember from the Marvels movie and WandaVision, she had 2 volumes of Captain Marvel to her name when she was called Captain Marvel. Of course, I think one had only 1 issue in it and one had 2 issues in it. You don't really have like to have 200 issues to qualify as a volume. You have just 1 issue and that'd be a volume of that. Um, Genus Marvel, who is the son of the original Captain Marvel in Marvel continuity, at least he was, he has 3 series of those 12 dedicated to him. And then the current Captain Marvel, which is Carol Danvers, as you might know from the Captain Marvel movie and Marvels as well, she has the remaining 5 volumes of that. So you can see there's that in there it's kind of like a little like up in the air and kind of stuff like that. Um, Let me give you an example with Superman about this. To give you an example why people would do this, this will give you a little stuff like this. First of all, Superman had his first volume started in 1938. Um, he got this volume because like he was appearing in Action Comics, and he proved to be so popular that the demand for him to have a series all to his own. Because Action Comics, he was sharing it with characters like Zatara and Congo Bill and a whole bunch of other series in it. He was big enough to have a series to himself with all the stories dedicated to him. He got this in 1939. This is like about a year after he made his first appearance. That first volume lasted until 1986. Why was it canceled? Well, because that's around the time that uh, the Crisis on Infinite Earths was finishing. Crisis on Infinite Earths was a miniseries DC Comics ran from 1985 to 1986, which was supposed to be a clarifying, a consolidation, and a simplifying of the DC Comics universe. Before that, you had a whole bunch of different Earths and different characters on different Earths, and the Superman from the 40s and the 50s and the 30s was on an Earth called Earth 2, and then the modern day Superman took over in Earth 1 in the late 1950s, 1960s, and then you had like so on and so forth, like an evil Superman on Earth 3, and so on and so forth. Uh, the Crisis on Infinite streamlined all that into one universe, and when it did, DC took it as the opportunity to revamp Superman. They brought in a Marvel Comics author, John Byrne, one of my favorite authors of all time and artists of all time, to do a kind of a ground up um, scrubbing of Superman, taking out a whole bunch of his mythos, adding some new stuff, and trying to make him hip and happen in the modern comics. Um, as a such, he got another volume start. That started in 1987. There was a brief Man of Steel miniseries, I believe it was a weekly series, if I'm not mistaken, which kind of introduced the concepts that he was going to have, and he got a new #1. And you might think like this means like the original Superman series, which was up to like 423 issues, just went by the wayside and never was forgotten about it. No, to make it even more complex and irritating and confusing, they started another series at the same time called Adventures of Superman. The numberings on that started with 424. In other words, picked up on the numbering of the original Superman series and kept that going. Adventures of Superman lasted into 2006, um, and it was canceled, and it was kind of merged into the Superman Volume 2, and the Superman Volume 2 took up the numbering. It ended at 649, and since 650 was a landmark kind of anniversary issue, it merged into Superman, and Superman's numbering went from like 225 to 650, 226 to 650 overnight. Yeah, so that's like I didn't have any problem with this because like I had it on my pull list, so like it was kind of like it happened, I got it, it didn't work. But if you're going back in trying to fill in the holes for your collection and try to figure out where all these what volume these are all fallen, that's that's one of the most confusing aspects of Superman's publication history. Um, the volume 2 lasted for another couple of years, another 5 years, until 2011. This is when the Flashpoint miniseries hit, and DC hit the reset button again and did a continuity reboot. Every title was canceled, and certain titles were restarted with a #1. Superman was one of these titles. This series, all the series, if they were lucky, lasted for 52 issues. At the end of 52 issues, the reboots button was pushed again um, into a event called DC Rebirth, and this kind of like reestablished the pre New 52 continuity. New 52 had a whole bunch of changes in it that changed to Superman. I remember, like in Action Comics, it took place in Superman's past in New 52, where he was like just a T-shirt and jeans and fighting crime that way. Um, and a lot of others changed either majorly or minorly in that event. But Rebirth brought them all back to where it was beforehand. Um, the Rebirth ran until looks like 2018, when it was canceled and started with a new #1. This time it started as a new #1 and a new series, a new volume, because Brian Michael Bendis, a longtime Marvel comic book writer, made a move over to DC Comics, and he was giving the boutique assignment of writing Superman. And to make it more of an event, they canceled the volume and we started with the #1, so he could get a little more attention to his run. This lasted to 2022 until there's another crossover event called Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths, which once again did a continuity reboot tweak to the continuity kind of thing. And so the Bendis volume was canceled and we started with yet another #1, the 6th volume of the Superman series. So as you can see over the years, that is the current series that's currently coming on, that the 6th Superman series. It is still running today, but there has been 6 series in DC Comics for Superman. Um, and the reasons vary from continuity reboots, restarting it over, um, having a new creator come on to start up the series, trying to do a fresh take on the character. Um, these are all various reasons for doing this. Marvel has a policy of restarting stuff for multiple volumes as well. As I said, most of those ones I mentioned a couple of minutes ago were all Marvel books. But there's some more to actually, like, basically every new volume is to designed, every new number one is designed to make more sales. Number ones sell more than number twos, number threes. The idea thinking behind this, thinking like, um, that a lot of people wouldn't like to come into issue 650 out of the blue of a series, but number one means, okay, it's accessible. I can actually get on the ground floor, even though they're not, because they have, you know 40 to 80 years of continuity behind it. Um, but nonetheless, it's basically trying to sell more money, sell more books, make more money, sell more books. Um, Marvel seems to do this on a regular basis for that reason only. Scarlet Witch started a couple years ago. It ran for about like 10 issues or so, maybe more. Then was canceled and restarted as Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, which I believe ran for 4 or 5 issues. Then it went back to another volume of Scarlet Witch, which ran for maybe a year. And now it's coming out with a Vision and Scarlet Witch. So technically, there's been like 3 years of Scarlet Witch stories, but there's been 4 different series doing it. They're all done by the same artist and same writer, um, for the most part. But they break it up into volumes to try to get more sales out of it and get more in the hands of more people. Um, uh, and you can't really blame them for it, because if people didn't buy more of the number ones, they won't keep on making number ones. But it is needlessly confusing and needlessly difficult, and that's not just for like outsiders. I do not envy anybody who is a significant other of a comic book collector, who is watching this kind of stuff to try to get some clarity on the whole um, volume conundrum, and decides not to, it's probably more confused now than they were when they came in. Because you know what, I have been collecting comic books for like 40 years, 45 years probably going on that, and I'm still confused, particularly about Daredevil. Daredevil has had a number of volumes. Let me check with my research here that I did. Um, Daredevil has had 8 volumes, which you know goes on, and these new volumes are mostly a recent thing, like usually around the last like 20 or 30 years. Like for like a big hunk of their history, like from like 1960s to 1980s, 1990s, they had the same volume, same number, and keep on going one after another. They were changing artists and creators and whatnot, and didn't even bother with it. But now, I guess now, because like the different economy and how comic book sales have been like kind of not as good as they were in the past, they do the different volumes. But for me, the change between volume number 3 and number 4 of Daredevil confuses the heck out of me, because the third one ended with issue number 36. It had a big Daredevil. It's written by Mark Waid, drawn by Chris Samney. Had a red band at the bottom, as the trade dress of the time had. They canceled that. Started with a new number one, which was also done by Mark Waid and Chris Samney, and had a red band at the bottom. And granted, the red band only came in around like the 20s of volume 3, and lasted until about like the teens, somewhere around there, of volume 4. But nonetheless, my mind cannot get around which issues. I have issues missing of both um, volumes. Which volume goes to which book goes to which volume? Which number 7 is for 3 or 4? And I have bought the same issue like 2 or 3 times already, just going by memory, or just going by my book and stuff like that, not knowing which trade dress is which. It, um, So it's very confusing. But what I found it is that, and this maybe you could use in your own life, is well, I have a database on my phone called CBZ, I believe, or CLZ. It's a comic book database and has all the pictures of comic books on there that I need. So I can just click on the need, like go through a whole bunch of menus, click the title, missing titles, and get to see which number 7 cover is the one that I need. So I can avoid it that way. This doesn't really help you, the casual kind of like collector, because it's a paid service. Well, no, it's a free service, but I think you have to pay for special features and stuff like that. Um, and You might not be that involved to have it on your phone. However, if you're buying a comic book for a special other person, as I say again, I'll say every time, your husband, wife, mother, father, son, daughter, boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever. This is not, even though it's mentioned Girlfriend's Guide to Comics, this is for everybody. If you're buying a special one for them, you need to find out from them which, like, which series they need. If they're clicking one particular character or title, they might want everything for every series. You have to basically do a little research on that. Um, Online, comics.org, which is a Grand Comics database. It's basically a photo documentation of every single comic book ever made. And it's an index, and it has artists and everything like that. So if you look for Daredevil Volume 3, I'll tell you the dates of them. You'll be able to look on there and the cover gallery and see what covers look like. That's probably the easiest way for you to do it. Might involve you doing a little research more than just like watching this video, but at least this way you'll know which volume goes with which number, so you're not getting a duplicate that your significant other who loves comics already has in their collection. Um, Another version is also Mike's Awesome World. Um, it's done by a man. I do not know his name, but he passed away. But he created a database which goes further than the comic book database because it gives like actual like dates of release. So you could say if your boyfriend wants every comic book put out on April 11th, 1989, you go on there, click on the icon, and get every stuff there. They also have like a whole bunch of like covers that you could use to see like which comic book is for which volume by what their cover looks like. That will help you a little bit to help cut through the swath of like the uh, which volume is which. But if you don't want to do that research, a lot of it you have to do like a lot of guesswork. Obviously, if like most of the first volumes of these books date all the way back to the '60s, and you can tell by the trade dress and like the art style, it changes over the years. If you look through many back issues, you see like you know comic book covers from the '60s are different than ones in the '70s. Like the '70s have like a little band across the time that says top of the cover that says Marvel Comics Group. That's when we could tell it's in the '70s. Um, like I said, some other people have like all the DC Rebirth titles had Rebirth on the top for first couple of issues. Same thing with Dawn of DC. They have the Dawn of DC, which is the current volume as Superman has, which takes place after the Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths miniseries. It has Dawn of DC on the top of it. That way you could tell that's that volume. Um, you can tell also by the price. The cheaper the price is, most likely the earlier it is in the whole structure. Um, if you see it, like if your significant other needs like a comic book in Daredevil, say um, volume 2, number 3, and the cover price on it, that's what you found in there is $2.99, $3.99 for number 3. You know off the bat that it's not that because the price was much cheaper back then. And this is where another thing that the Mike's Awesome World comes in, because they give you the actual cover price for all of them without actually having to like have blow up the cover and whatever. Um, Trying to figure out which volume is which takes a lot of detective work, and it's something that I really can't blame anybody who would not want to do that. Um, but if you do that for your significant other as a gift, if you're buying them a gift of like a comic book collection or a key issue that they need, they will really appreciate it because they know how difficult it is to negotiate all the different volumes. Um, Hopefully, this answers all the questions you have about the volumes. If you have any more questions, please put in the comments questions in the comments. I will try to go through them and answer them as best I can. Um, if anybody else has any other, like any experienced comic book collectors, have any information about how to determine which volume is which, and any tips or advice they could give, please put it in there. I'm not a super genius that knows everything about this, so any help I could get would be greatly appreciated. If you like this information here and you thought it was helpful, subscribe because I every Tuesday I'm going to try to put one of these up until I run out of topics. Um, and so so just keep on doing that. And if you have anything that a topic you'd like me to cover that I might not be in here, put that in a comment too, so I could know ahead of time. Uh, so subscribe. Also like it because it helps with the algorithm and helps me know what segments are better than others. Like which are you responding to more, and which would you like me to put more effort into. Um, but So that's it on comic book volumes, and I hope this is very useful. And until I see you next time, keep collecting.